Welcome, everyone. Great to have you here tonight. We'll just give it a minute or so to let everyone come in. My name's Yvonne Hilsz. I'm the president of the P&C Federation. I'll be your host tonight. Welcoming you all from where you're coming through this evening. I can see you all coming in. Hope you've got a cup of tea or a coffee or some water, as we're in for a great night with our two special guests. So thank you for being so prompt. We'll just give it a minute just so we know that we've got as many people coming in. I appreciate it's a busy time of the evening with kids, meals, homework, sporting activities, and everything else that goes on at this hour. I've been juggling feeding my dinner, a breakfast dinner for this evening, as this is a busy evening for us as well. So I appreciate that there is a lot of activity. So we are very grateful for you attending tonight in what might be a busy time. So we'll just give it another minute or so just to let people in. Great to see so many people have reached. This has been a very, very popular webinar to kickstart 2024, and particularly with our two special guests. So we know that we've got a really great hour ahead of us. Thank you so much. I can see some more people coming in. Great. All right. Well, in respect of the fact that we want to start promptly and to acknowledge you all for being so prompt, I will begin. So my name is Yvonne Hilsz, and it is my great pleasure to be here tonight. I am the president of the P&C Federation. I've been president since halfway through last year, and I had a great 2-year term as vice president prior to that, and have been president at my daughter's primary school for 5 years. So a lot of volunteering hours, and it is such a great opportunity to be part of the P&C Federation at a state level, and we've got some great things. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that in the spirit of reconciliation, the P&C Federation acknowledges the traditional custodians of our country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to the elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here tonight. And I'm speaking to you tonight from Wongal land. Purpose of tonight is really to welcome back to the school year for 2024. I remember at the end of last year thinking, whew, we've got a long school holidays, and then next minute I'm thinking, oh, I need to get my lunchbox sorted for my daughter. And here we are already kick-starting into the year. We are very fortunate to have New South Wales Deputy Premier and Minister for Education and Early Learning, Prue, and Secretary for New South Wales Education, Murat Dizdar, joining us this evening. Prue and Murat will say a few words shortly about the year ahead, and then we will answer the questions, as many as we can, with the time that we have. Before I pass over to Murat, who will kickstart, there is a function that you can add for questions. It's the Q&A tab, which is at the bottom of your screen, that will be active throughout the whole session. There is a team behind the scenes, both from the P&C Federation and the New South Wales Department of Education, who are here tonight, and they will be here to assist. They will view and manage all of the questions as well. Just a heads up, the questions won't be visible to other attendees, and nor will I be disclosing any names, just for your own privacy, so that you can pass through your questions knowing that I would raise the question as it is, but without disclosing any names, just for privacy. We are recording tonight's webinar, and we will be sharing the recording with everyone who has registered in the next couple of days. And if you would like to activate the live transcript for this webinar, go to the icon at the bottom of your screen and click Enable Auto Transcription. All right, so with great joy, I'd like to ask Murat, who is the Secretary of New South Wales Department of Education, to take the mic. Thank you, Murat.
Thanks, Yvonne. Good evening to the thousands of parents that have made themselves available for us to be able to connect. I've got to say, I'm very, very excited to be able to join you all. And I share that excitement as a parent in the system with the kickoff of the 2024 school year. Can I indicate that we're coming to you from the lands of the Gadigal of the Eora? We're on their beautiful homelands here at Parliament House. I've got to declare that if you hear the bells ring, it's not an evacuation sign there. It's we're here in Parliament House, the Deputy Premier. It's a sitting week, and so you may hear background bell ringing to call members to the House. I am delighted that the Deputy Premier has made time for us to be able to connect with all our parents out there. And I want to introduce her and hand the mic to her, our Deputy Premier and Minister for Education and Early Learning. I know I'm biased, but it's the best portfolio that you could have in government, the Honourable Prue.
Thanks, Murat. It definitely is. Thank you for putting this on, firstly, to the P&C Federation. A really great opportunity to connect with parents who are such important partners with us in our system, delivering the best possible public education we can provide to your children. Welcome back to school for 2024. I know I can say this to all of the fellow parents, but we all breathe a sigh of relief, don't we, when school starts in some way. But it is a hectic time of year, and it's important for us in terms of running the system and as minister to just reiterate that this year, you know, we have a lot of work to do, but every single thing we're doing is about making sure that this is about delivering the best possible education for your children. Every single thing we are doing is about achieving those student outcomes, learning outcomes, well-being outcomes, all the things that we know that we can do at school. And really, I want to acknowledge how much work you have done as parents in creating the beautiful school communities that you're part of, and commit myself and the government to working with you to continue to help these to thrive.
I wanted to, we wanted to cover some turf and terrain and then take questions, Yvonne, from our parents. Can I say, as a former teacher and principal in the system, I need no convincing about how important the engagement of parents are in the public education system. I mean, the research is very clear that when you have parents that are deeply engaged in their child's learning, that are supporting the teaching and learning and the leadership at the school, that strong triangle of parents, of the staff in a school and students comes to fruition. It's where schools produce the best of outcomes. And that's why I'm delighted as Secretary of Education in New South Wales that I was able to sign away with Yvonne as your president of the P&C Federation, a 10-year partnership agreement. We haven't had one of those before, and it's committed both of us as important partners in education to work together, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And I really respect and value the working structure we do have with Yvonne and her team at the P&C Federation. Can I also say that my own two children, two boys, are in a government public school, and our daughter is in a government high school, and I take my hat off to the P&C of both of those schools because I see the countless hours that they give up, the volunteer hours. And I know many of you on this call tonight give us more than 40 hours of commitment each and every term. At my child's, the two boys in their government primary school, they run, I think, the world's biggest fete every second year. It outdoes Luna Park in Sydney. And I know parents are tremendous in that line of work, but also in going into classrooms and volunteering with reading groups, in running the school canteen, in beautifying the school grounds. And I want to thank you on behalf of education in New South Wales for the huge difference that you make. I called out Yvonne, but we also want to call out Jane Miller, who's the CEO of the P&C Federation. I know the Deputy Premier and I both value that strong line of advice and guidance around what parents are feeling in this state in our public education system. Deputy Premier?
Thanks, Murat. And I just wanted to talk you through some stuff. I mean, you've probably heard a lot of this in the media, but in more detail about in terms of what we're investing in as a government in our public schools. Of course, you would have heard us talk a lot about that investment and how important education is to us as a government, I hope. We have made improving outcomes for our kids through really having, I think, the guts to be able to tackle the teacher shortage really front and center of what we're doing. So you'd know that we've given teachers the biggest pay rise that they've had in a generation. We've just finished what will be the first installment of a program to make so many more teachers and support staff in your schools taking them from temporary to permanent. So when we came to government, 60% of the workforce was permanent, which means obviously 40% was temporary. Our view is that was unacceptable. We need permanently employed support staff and teachers in our schools. We need to encourage people to be teachers, to be teaching our children, and that was really acting as a disincentive. So that's sitting at about now 80%. We're pretty proud of that, but there's a little bit more to go. And then the big thing that we have to bite off, and I want to acknowledge P&C Federation's work in this because you've been out there advocating for your kids on this, is we really have to get the funding level right for our public schools. Both myself and the Commonwealth Minister, Jason Clare, have committed to getting New South Wales schools to 100%. And this year we'll be negotiating just how to make that happen. I want to assure you I'll be very vocal when it comes to getting the best deal for New South Wales. We are the biggest system in the country. We have the lion's share of public schools. We have the most complex public schools. We need to address the equity challenges that are staring us in the face, really. And we believe that the Commonwealth should lift its share of that funding to 25%. So you'll be seeing a lot of that, but really it's about getting the right level of needs-based funding so we can really run the programs in your schools, particularly for kids that really need the support, like the children that are in, say, in NAPLAN are in needs additional support, to get their small group tutoring intervention in there, to lift them up, all that wonderful stuff we know works, getting more of it in your schools, and we're going to need some federal money in order to do that.
A very, very important topic, and I'm really proud how the Deputy Premier has been ferocious. I've seen it in those discussions, and rightfully so, because she often hears me say as Secretary, I really look forward to the day, Deputy Premier, when we're on the same start line, as the other sectors, because we've always had to start behind and play catch up for our children. So it'll be a lovely day, a day of wonderful celebration when we achieve that for public schools in this state. Another big topic for the Deputy Premier and I that we're really determined to improve on is to make sure that the inclusivity of our public schools is really, really strong. I think the DNA of the public education system is that we take all learners, regardless of where they're at and what their needs are, and we meet those needs. That's been the fabric of public education since 1848. And we are, the Deputy Premier and I, really fixated on getting it right for students with disability. The data says 1 in 4 of our students have require an adjustment in the learning process. And we want to make sure our workforce, our exceptional teachers out there, are well equipped to support that, but that the funding lines are correct, just like the Deputy Premier indicated, and that the support classes or the special schools all have an inclusive mentality. And you would have heard that there was a really important Royal Commission into both violence, abuse, neglect, and exploitation of people with disability. And there's some really important recommendations for education in this country. And we're working, I want you to know that we're working with the Department of Communities and Justice on a whole of government response here in New South Wales. And I do encourage you, I know the timeline's tight, but we do have until 12 February. If any parent or carer or P&C wants to make a submission to that really important inquiry, having your feedback as parents with your lived experiences will also be very, very critical. The Deputy Premier might want to jump to the other equity focus areas that we've also got.
I mean, equity obviously is a huge call out, and it's something that drives, I know, each and every teacher in the system, every principal, and everything that you're doing as P&C parents to support the work that they're doing with their kids. It's really important that we maintain, we believe, a focus on equity, because in our system in public schools in New South Wales, it's more important. We just have more equity groups, we're just going to call it out, than the non-government sector. Like, that is just the truth of it. You know, 1 in 3 public school students experience significant socio-education disadvantage compared to only 12% of students in non-government schools. So that's why you may have seen we released after much consultation, the plan for public education. And a lot of this was focused on that equity piece, about really looking at the kids that really need help. And it comes back to what I was saying before about making sure we get the proper needs-based funding, the small group tutoring, making sure our schools are funded properly, making sure we have enough teachers in our classrooms, and then really focusing on equity and the concentration of disadvantage that we have in our schools. So I just really want to leave you with no doubt that that's a huge focus for us as a government, really addressing the equity challenges in our system.
And just off the back of that, the plan for public education, which has just kicked off on day one, term one this year, after a term's worth of consultation, 7,000 piece of individual response. It's our blueprint for public schools in this state. One of the things that the Deputy Premier and I have called out deeply in this plan is the importance of explicit, systematic quality teaching. Our parent body should know that the research is very, very clear globally about the best pedagogy to deliver on. And that's explicit teaching. And what is explicit teaching? It's where the teacher takes the lead role in the classroom, the teacher's demonstrating the concepts of learning, explaining why and how that learning fits into the curriculum, as well as the sequential nature of learning, guides the learners through that process, checks their understanding so that they can get a sense that the learning is being absorbed and the students are moving before they move on to independent learning, and feedback is really, really important. I'll tell you why I love this as a former teacher who was trained in this, because it doesn't discriminate on ability. Whether you're a child who's struggling with the curriculum, or you're a child who's even accelerating beyond your class or stage, explicit teaching is proven to work with all learners. And because the Deputy Premier and I are hell-bent on raising the outcomes for students in public schools in this state, because reading and numeracy and attendance and pathways are so critical, we're going to make sure that the department's professional learning for our 95,000 teachers is based upon this evidence-based explicit teaching practice. I wanted to flag that with you because I believe you'll hear about it from your principal, you'll hear it in newsletters, you'll hear it at parent-teacher night when classroom teachers are talking about how they're trying to move the dial on your child's learning. Deputy Premier?
I think that's really important, isn't it, for parents for that to be shared with parents, particularly the evidence base behind that. That's, I think, pretty comforting. It should be comforting, and give you a sense that what we're doing in the system is based on best practice, and all about getting your kids, really helping them improve, day by day. Our children are facing a world that's changing every day, and the teachers in front of them in their classrooms are going to be so much part of what forms their future. So we're really happy to be working with you. Thanks for listening to our little soliloquy. And I think it's time for Yvonne to ask us questions.
Yes. Thank you.
Please. Yeah.
There's a lot of questions. Look, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you've really addressed some key issues, and funding certainly is top of our mind. And for those who are PNC members who are on this call, we have certainly at the Federation sent out some great information as to how at a local level we can also back in support around why full funding matters. So thank you so much. All right, the team have got some questions here, and just to help with the questions, which are fantastic, thank you so much. I can see more coming through as I'm talking. The team have just started to categorize them, which is useful so that we've got a couple of themes. Interestingly, funding is top of mind for many, so I've just got a couple of questions here. As I said, I won't be disclosing names for privacy, so that just the question itself. All right, so Deputy, this one is for you. So reduced funding for students with disability. Our school lost half of their SLSOs for 2024 and funded students lost support.
Okay. I want to assure everyone on this webinar, and of course, in this particular case, we might have to work through that in particular, but funding for students with a disability, there is no way that has been forgotten. We do have a range of ways that we fund our public schools in terms of students with disability. We've got flexible funding, we've got learning and support teachers, we've got integration funding support, obviously SLSOs, and then we've got schools for specific purposes. I will say that one of the biggest pieces that we need to get a handle on is if there are changes to the NDIS and potentially children in our schools might come off the NDIS, we need to work out a way to make sure that these foundational supports are given to the kids, and also that our schools are supported and funded to be able to support every child to be able to learn and thrive and grow in their schools, because we have to meet them, where their need is at. So that definitely hasn't been forgotten. But if there is a particular case of where there is, there needs to be SLSOs when the schools appoint the SLSOs directly, as you probably know. But if there is a particular case, we need to take that away and have a look at that. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. That's really useful, Prue. All right, just to even it out, Murat, I'm going to throw this one to you, see what your catching skills are like. Okay, what are the advantages of public schools compared with private schools and Catholic primary schools?
Well, I think ours is a world-class system, 2,200 schools right across the state, ever since 1848, opening their arms and welcoming them to all learners. We don't turn anyone away, and our track record is proven. We are focused on moving a child from where they're at, meeting that child where they're at, and improving their lot. And I think, that's why some of the other sectors who sometimes struggle with the same students that we can work with, send them our way. And we gladly accept them, because that's our lot and we make a difference. I must say, people might think I'm biased because I've been through the system as a student at Summerhill Public and Fort Street High School. I've seen it firsthand as a student. I've seen it then as a teacher and as a principal in this system. And what I also witnessed as a principal and teacher in the system was the might of the department. To have a massive department full of experts, whether that be in legal or curriculum or student wellbeing or infrastructure, that comes to the fore. And I know that private schools, independent schools, don't have that structure. Catholic schools have that structure to some degree. And unashamedly, I want to make public education the system of choice here in New South Wales. And that's why I've got my own children in that system. I believe in that system. And I believe the best teachers exist in that system, who become principals in that system. And I want to thank everyone who's made themselves available, because I know I'm talking to the converted who are believers in the system as well.
Exactly. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Murat. Thanks, Murat. All right, let me just keep going through these questions. Okay. Murat, I think this one might be a good one for you too. All right, this is around enrolment and curriculum. So please comment on media reportage regarding the movement of students from public to private during that year 6, year 7 transition.
Yeah, Yvonne, I think it's a top question. I must say this one concerns me, and in my briefings to the Deputy Premier, I know she's concerned about it as well. Once our families are with us, I want them to go with us the whole 13 years. And I know that having looked at recent data, particularly across the last 3 years, there's been a little bit of a drift away after a few years of what is primary schooling into secondary schooling. And I think there's a range of factors there, Yvonne. I want to be brutally honest with our parents, because that's what they would expect of me. sometimes they're veiled threats from the other sectors. You know, if you don't join us by year 4, you won't have an opportunity to join us in high school. Sometimes, you know, it's parents thinking they're buying into a better cohort for their child, and you know, I do respect parent choice, but sometimes, Yvonne, I've spoken to parents who are quite happy with the provision, and their child is happy, and I say, don't make any movement. A happy child, an engaged child, a connected child with their school, the research says is going to produce good outcomes in that setting. Keep at that setting. And don't believe in hearsay. Sometimes we hear that the local high school is this and that. And when you get there, the reality is it's not. So please make the time to at least go and look for yourself, at least discuss that movement and that possible movement with the principal. I want us to start in kindergarten, and I want us to stay with us for 13 years like I did. And I want more parents to make the same choice that my wife and I have done so with our own children, because the ultimate worth and measure of any school has got to be how they move that child forward and how they land that child after secondary schooling, whether that's Yvonne TAFE or employment, or whether that's tertiary study. And Yvonne, one last data I want to give, etched into my head because I'm enormously proud of it, but 91.7%, it's the highest in the country, 92% of our year 12 students in public schools landed in one of those 3 areas, either in university or in employment or at TAFE. And that's a landing that money can't buy.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. That's that's powerful stat, 92%. I wrote that down. That's a good one to circle back to. Fantastic, Murat. All right, thick and fast. I'm reading through what the team are curating for me to sift through. What have we got? All right, Prue, this one's for you. What changes are being made to the curriculum, and how are they implemented and passed on to parents and carers?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that has been said about changes to the curriculum. So the K to Year 12 curriculum is being reformed, and that process has taken quite a number of years. And you may have seen us announce this, we have actually slowed this down. The reason why we've slowed it down is because we didn't believe no, sorry, it's not about belief. It's actual feedback from educators that told us they didn't have the right amount of time to get across new curriculum, new syllabuses. And I know as parents that you would appreciate that's a less than ideal outcome. Like, because one of those things, when you consult with people, like some things are like 60-40 or 50-50. It was one of those things that was overwhelming that we needed to slow that down. But we are rolling out the new curriculum. Now, just to put this into perspective, when we talk about the kindergarten to year 12 curriculum being reformed, we're talking about 130 syllabuses, right? So it's quite an undertaking, and it's serious. We're talking about the curriculum that guides what our children are being taught in our schools. So we're doing this properly and giving teachers the time to get familiar with it. So we've reprioritised that. Obviously, the mandatory curriculum, the mandatory syllabuses like English, maths were given priority, and that's a lot of feedback from the community about that, because we need to make sure that students sort of develop those foundational literacy and numeracy skills. That's obviously really important. NESA's digital curriculum platform is a place where you can see all that stuff. The department's website as well. We need to make sure, Yvonne, that everyone has easy access to that, because obviously as parents, you want to be as familiar as possible with the curriculum, so you can engage with your kids about what they're learning in the classroom as well. But really, I just want to impress upon everyone the fact that we're really in an effort to do this properly, the implementation properly, because this is really important. Like this, at the end of the day, we build schools, we try to get the amount of teachers in our classrooms, and the magic happens when that teacher is actually using their expert practice to teach the curriculum to the kids. So this is gold.
I just want to add, Yvonne, when the Deputy Premier announced this at Crown Street Public School 10 months ago, you could hear the cheers across the state, where teachers were given time for familiarisation before implementation.
Yeah.
Teachers treat the curriculum, I certainly did, like the Bible. They
Yeah.
walk around with it. So to have time to deeply engage. And the Deputy Premier will remember this press conference was cross-sectoral and the entire sectors were cheering. Yeah.
That's true. And look, I don't want to keep going on like a broken record, even though I do about the teacher shortage, but it was just another reason why we were losing teachers. And at the end of the day, we can't do any of this stuff if we don't have teachers in front of our kids.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and look, you're so right, because it will just make such a massive difference. On that note, talking about curriculum, which kind of leads into it, I've got a great question here about an update of the remaining 90 of 100 public preschools. I'm a massive fan for this. The benefits of having a preschool alongside primary schools where possible is such a wonderful introduction into primary school. I experienced that personally with my daughter. Love to hear some updates and share so you can share some insights of how that's going.
Thanks, Yvonne. This is really exciting. Like, I actually think this is one of the most transformative things that a government can do, is give free preschool to kids in public schools. Basically, essentially making those schools, preschool to year 6. I'm really excited to roll this out. We announced, I think it was last year, about September, we announced the first 10 sites. So they will be on existing or new and upgraded sites. And then we have engaged a arm's length system process where we have assessed need, infrastructure, where there are deserts, where there is the most need for preschool education in that community. And that's going through an independent process. So it's not appointed by government. So we know that we can actually say this is where the preschools are needed. I mean, they're needed in lots of places, but we've got 100 to do. So I don't have any authority from the Treasurer to say this, but like in my ideal world, like that's the first 100, right? So, but I'm the minister, so of course I'm going to say that. But so we're going to announce that shortly, hopefully. So hopefully there's some people from some schools that will be getting some. Yeah, so like we'll work with principals, local P&Cs, obviously, communities, making sure as well that we don't. It's a bit more difficult than you would first think. Like I want to say, cannibalize existing preschool services, because you don't want to sort of kill what's already there and might be working. But I'm really, really excited about this. This is apparently the biggest uplift in public preschools in New South Wales history. And if this works, then this could be a new model, Yeah,
that's amazing.
I must say, Yvonne, wonderful to be able to work and deliver this commitment of government. But there is certainly a headache. When I move across the state, I know the DP the same. There's not one primary school principal who says, don't pick me, don't pick me. Every one of them. Because the research and evidence around early learning, like the Deputy Premier said, play-based learning is so important. But I've only ever known in 27 years in my career in the department to have 100 preschools in public schools. And this is the first time in history that there's been an addition and a doubling. So it's been a really welcome announcement. And I know my team back in the department are so excited to work on this one.
Yeah, look, it's lovely too from a parent's point of view, having been through a school which has a preschool inside, and also the benefit for the children who get through it, the integration into kindy. The transition is so seamless. I mean, essentially for 4 or 5 year olds, but then they're always part of that beautiful school community. And I know for me, as a P&C, I started on the P&C when my daughter was in preschool, like literally had no idea, but I said, I could do something. But eventually I felt part of a broader community, and I learned so much wisdom, and I've got beautiful friendships from parents who are years ahead of me in the school journey. And it really did bring that community alive for me, just talking from a P&C's point of view. And And then, you know, for the children who I still see, who I talk a lot with parents who are just entering into the school system through preschool and transitioning perhaps out of daycare or being full-time at home. It is such an integral part, and it's a delight when you see them kind of start their first days as preschool and then see them graduate to their oversized uniforms when they start kindy as their, or the backpack that's bigger than them. So yeah, I'm really pleased to see that's amazing, and I can see it's a real passion for both of you as well.
You described that so well. On day one in kinder for those kids, I don't see the parents or the kid crying. I see just the transition is so smooth. You describe it so well.
It is, and there's usually such a beautiful buddy system too within the school, and even for the older kids, there's often the preschool still within visible, so that, you know, they're still getting that connection, which I think is really useful for
them as
There's
well.
a lot of benefit.
Yeah, lovely. And I know for some of the kindy kids, they often still get potentially access to that great playground. It might give them some joy during their breaks. All righty. And look, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has put in some questions. It's fantastic, and I know we appreciate all of the care and the curation of these questions, and I'm doing my best to make sure we can get across some of the themes to make sure that we can at least answer as many as we possibly can. And thank you to Prue and Murat for letting me handle some of these questions. All right, let me just have a look. What have I got here? Oh, this is a really interesting one. And Murat, I'm going to send this one to you. Actually, no, let me give this one to Prue. It's about teachers. How is the teacher shortage being addressed?
Okay, this is, I could talk about this for an hour, but this is probably the biggest challenge we face. Not probably, it is the biggest challenge we face. And as a government, I would say that there isn't anything that we are not trying to throw at it. So on one end, we've got obviously the significant pay rise for teachers, particularly for beginning teachers. Like, we had this welcome to school event for all these new teachers earlier this week, sorry, feels like a year ago, it was this week. And I was able to say to them, you are the highest beginning paid teachers in the country, right? So that's about attracting, obviously, and then that will hopefully start to flow on as year 10, 11, 12 kids start to think about their careers and what they're studying at uni. And the fact that teachers now, when they begin, will be paid according to the respect that society has for them. But we did have massive vacancies when we came to office. So that takes quite a while to sort of bear fruit, things like the pay rise. We're certainly hopeful of the green shoots that we're seeing in both beginning teachers coming in, plus people choosing not to go. So retention is also a massive part of it. At the same time, the permanency was a huge part of keeping people in the system, also sending a message to young people saying, we want you to be able to aspire to make teaching your life's work, you know, especially in New South Wales, where it's really damn expensive to live, you know, like to be able to have a job, a permanent job where you can get a car loan and a home loan, like that stuff is not insignificant at all. The other thing that we're doing that I'm starting to see just in the first few weeks of term from teachers is that we have a team in the department that are re-engaging retired teachers.
Oh, great.
And these are teachers that in the main, I'm just anecdotally generalizing, but have gone because they were sort of sick of how they felt about the system, and fair enough too. So they're being called like individually by this special crack team in the department and coming back. And like, I was at a high school last week during their staff development day, and in the English faculty, there was 2 of them that had been retired that had come back to work a couple of days. Like, you can't, that's 2 extra teachers, vacancies that, yeah, exactly. So we're going to have to try and get it from both ends because there's no, like, we can't do any of this stuff for our kids without the teachers. Like, I keep saying it over and over again, but like, there's no way that we can do anything without them. And then we and this is going to have to be a huge part of what we do this year, is we're really going to have to hone in on the workload question, about making it easier for teachers to teach. It sounds like the simplest thing to say in the world, but it's just not. Like, you know, you see a lot of this, and you probably see this with your kids' teachers. Like, there's so much paperwork and admin and busy work, and so like we're sort of trying to do a lot of things at once, hiring hundreds of admin staff to try and take the burden off teachers. Yesterday, we announced pilot of a like a chat GPT app, but lots better.
Oh,
Like,
is that specific for Department of Education?
We're calling EduChat, very creative. But we're trialing it in 16 schools across the state to start with, based on information that is in the New South Wales curriculum. So trusted, reliable,
Safe,
all that stuff. But really interestingly, in the context of talking about teacher workload, there's a special one that's just bespoke for teachers with a department's policy. So a teacher could say, I'm going on an excursion. Can you plan me a risk assessment? I have a child in a wheelchair.
right?
So all that stuff together. So we're trying that in 16 school sites. So like all that stuff together is hopefully going to lead us to, and we believe it is, and hopefully in a couple of weeks when we really have a sense of who is in the classrooms, we can see that vacancies hopefully are going down. But there's literally nothing more important to me than fixing this, because like it just was coming at us at a rate of knots, and it's like having a hospital without doctors and nurses. You can't do it.
Yeah, that's really great to hear too, with the innovation around the AI, given that this is the way of the future, that
Yes.
already here. We're back to the future. Where's Michael J. Fox? And it's really smart because it's not going away, and to be able to trial it with those 16 schools, we'll be really curious to see how that is, and if there's an element that can really help the resources for teachers and the admin team of utilizing the technology around and planning an excursion. And these are some nuances that I need to account for, which means cuts down on admin time to give them more flexibility to do all the other things they do. That's great. That's going to be really useful.
And you know, Yvonne, if after the trial, when we assess how that's gone, and then we make decisions about what has to happen, what we're going to do across the system, then there's a lot of, I think, work that we can do with parents, because I know exactly what, like, you think about your kids using ChatGPT, right? Like, they'll put in something and it gives you the answer. Whereas this thing is really interesting in that you can type in, you know, I need to write an assignment about volcanoes.
Yeah.
It's not going to give you an essay. It's going to prompt you to write, like, to ask the right questions to get along the learning journey. I'm probably not saying that correctly, but it's actually, I think that should
helping with the critical thinking around it.
Yes. So I think that should give comfort to parents about the education department is not providing a ChatGPT so that kids don't learn. We're actually trying to use it in a way to help.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And look, this is really useful. And you know, you must have been reading some of my thoughts, because but it's upskilling that generation that is going to be what they go to work with anyway. So leaning into it rather than resisting. And certainly for us at the PNC, you know, we are a huge network of parents, and working with the department with the Voice of Parents, which there'll be many members, parents on this call tonight who are actively contributing to surveys and giving feedback from a parent's point of view. So there'll be some great things that we'll be able to circle back if and when required from a parent's perspective as well, which I'm sure that'll be part of that whole diagnosis after the trials, which is great. All righty, sticking on to teachers, and thank you. That's so good hearing about the AI. That's ticked off a couple of questions I've seen coming through as well. How, actually, I might give this one to you, Murat. How are you addressing the lack of teaching staff, particularly high school teachers applying for rural or remote schools? And I think this is a really important one. I know so much of what we represent here at the PNC Federation, alongside of our board members and definitely our grassroots PNC Association members on behalf of our parents, on behalf of our kids, is really some of the differences and nuances that are more pertinent in regional, rural, remote because of the complexity. So I think this is a really great question, and it's great that we've got something specific for our regional rural remote, because there certainly are some different challenges that they are facing. So I'll hand that one over to you.
You described that so well, Yvonne. I know the Deputy Premier has been rightfully at me to say, Murat, if 40% of our schools are rural, regional, and remote, and that's 25% of our students, and they are some of the locations with our equity challenges, I want you to make sure that you and your team have a even more heightened lens on the teacher shortage in these locations. And what I've been able to show the Deputy Premier with my team is that teacher shortage is not universally experienced. There are pockets of this state that are harder to staff than others. Everywhere is doing it tough by way of, even if they're fully staffed, attaining casual teachers, for example. But the Deputy Premier has been quite passionate about us trying to break the back on rural and remote and regional. I want to thank Jane Miller, who's our CEO. She did join me last year when I did host a roundtable with all our stakeholders as a focus on rural and remote. So one of the things that came out of that was, just like the Deputy Premier said to me, that the team wanted to focus on staffing. So the Deputy Premier has asked us to look at all our financial and non-financial incentives. We do have some of the highest incentives in the country, but to restock take on them, because obviously they're not all being taken up and they're not all working. She's asked us to look at our scholarships programs, and we were underway with a Grow Your Own program, because what the research says, Yvonne, is if you can grow people in situ, in location, they're already in that location and more likely to stay. And the Deputy Premier said to us, well, I want you to accelerate that. I want you to invest more in that. And I want it to have a rural and regional focus. So we're creating a lot of places for school learning support officers. Remember, they're not teachers, Yvonne, but they're in classrooms, as our parents know,
So critical.
helping children. In my career, I've seen many make outstanding teachers, but we've given them no help. Whereas with this program, we're sponsoring them and we're giving them time and payment to help convert them into teachers long term. And they could be Aboriginal education officers, school learning support officers, admin officers, business managers. So, we're trying to attack it, like the Deputy Premier said, on a variety of fronts. The pay's been welcome right across the state. We're keen to get the retention data soon, because we're hearing the Deputy Premier and I, people saying, I was going to leave, but now I'm because you have finally restored respect of the profession. And also the Deputy Premier at national meetings of education ministers is pushing the Commonwealth around the levers they can use to get more people into teaching. What do their scholarships and sponsorship programs look like? What does it look like on the HEX front, which is, a debate and discussion to be had. No short-term magic wicket here, but a multiplicity of wickets that we're tackling on to break the back of the teacher shortage right across the state. And it's going to take us a little bit of time. And like the Deputy Premier said, some good signs of success so far.
Yeah. And look, it's so true. Like, if I look at the community, and I think you mentioned it earlier about a triangle, there's so many elements that create a great thriving community for our kids, for our teachers and principals, and then the parents, and then all of the other support mechanisms in the school community that comes around it. And collectively, when we're addressing it, it has such a profound impact. And having teachers who are stable in, consistently being able to stay in the school community for longer than a year, it bridges relationships in the school community with the kids, and they see the stability of teachers. Teachers get to know our kids. If they're in regional or remote, they're part of that community in a very different aspect. And I'd just like to highlight to the number of parents who've stayed with us. Thank you so much. I've got a couple more burning questions I want to ask, but just as a highlight, with the focus of what we're doing here at the P&C Federation of Regional or Remote, is that this year we're getting back to road shows, where pre-COVID, obviously COVID grounded many things, but we are committed to getting out to the far extremes and working our way back in as much as possible. P&Cs, doing road shows, getting out to those, communities that can't get to our annual conference for all a variety of reasons. So we're doing a big roadshow. So I know Prue and Murat, I've mentioned that to you in our meetings, but just for all of the parents listening to this, it hasn't gone out as an announcement yet, but I've just gotten the clearance to talk about it by Jane, our CEO. But it's really important for us that we get out there and represent and get into communities that may not have had, visits from various communities for a variety of reasons. So it's definitely front of mind for us for regional or remote. It's an integral part of our community as well. All right, we could talk for hours, and I know that we could talk for hours, but I've got a couple of questions here, and then it'll be time to wrap up. I do appreciate all of these questions coming through. All right, I've got someone's particular around additional needs, and there's definitely been a variety of questions, so we've distilled it to a couple that will capture most of them. One of them here is around constant disruptive kids in classrooms. The question is, why can't they be isolated in classrooms with teachers equipped to deal with behaviours? And I think, Murat, that'll be a good question for yourself.
Yeah, I got to say, and credit to the Deputy Premier, as soon as she started, she said to me, Murat, I want the student behaviour policy revisited. I want it to be reevaluated. I want you to personally take charge of it because I've had way too much feedback that it misses the mark. And I'm glad we led that piece of work because what I know as a teacher and principal is that there's no parent and that there's no student in the system that does not crave an orderly, structured, disciplined learning environment. And that's what we've been able to do. So we went back, we worked with all the stakeholders, all the partners, got feedback. In fact, I want to thank the P&C Federation as well. And from day one this year, we started with the revamped student behaviour policy, the new suspension expulsion procedures, which does give authority to principals and schools to create that structured, disciplined learning environment. And for those kids in need who come unstuck, for the system to come and help the school support them. I think we've achieved the right balance, and I think the Deputy Premier was on the money when she instructed us to go back and revisit this.
Yeah, that's great. And look, on that note, Deputy Premier, will students get special attention if weak in any particular subject or any separate class or special assignments on that? Is there any thought around that?
I think what you would find is that every teacher would want to be able to do that, right? So the thing is this, we need to, as a government, resource schools to be able to do that better. So one of the things we are doing is this small group tutoring. So people may remember at their school during COVID, the previous government, to their credit, this is something they did really well, was the COVID small group tutoring. So what we've done is we've turned that into a permanent thing. And what we're doing is at the moment focusing that, people may remember in the last NAPLAN last year, the bands were different, specifically looking at the children that are in needs additional support, going in there, intervening, and small group learning to be able to lift them sort of and improve, right? So that is one way that we as a system will be doing that from this year. Every school has got the funding available to be able to do that pretty small amount of small group tutoring at the moment. But all I would do is I'm going to finish with this. This is exactly the sort of thing that if we got fair funding from the Commonwealth Government, we would be able to expand small group tutoring because every piece of evidence shows it works and the kids that need help and that individual support is going to make a massive difference.
And on that note, Deputy Premier and Secretary Murat, I think that finishes on a very good point. Funding. Look, thank you so much. We'll have to conclude because I know that we're getting toward the end of our session. And thank you so much. It's been a wealth of knowledge that you've been able to provide. And I speak on behalf of all the parents, and I apologise we can't get through to more of the questions. And we've tried to group them to cover off the themes within that. Thank you to the team working furiously behind the scenes making that happen. But thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And on behalf of all the parents and carers who registered tonight and who are watching this live, watching this as a recording, we just really value the contribution that you've raised for us with your responses. So thank you so much. For those of you, there will be a survey link that comes through. That'll be great. There will be a recording that comes out in the next couple of days. keep your eyes open to your inbox. We are asking parents across the state to sign a petition so that we can help with backing in about full funding, and we've got info packs. It's an important time of year with these negotiations, and we want to make sure that we're helping support as much as we can our kids. And with that, thank you to everyone who's been involved in prepping for this. And I will graciously say thank you, good night. Appreciate all of your answers and your response. And what a great start to 2024.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.